Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, April 19, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before we do get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast. We do try to watch our language, but sometimes words do fly. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we start this wonderful Wednesday? Well, not too many ways we can start except to kind of go right into it. I have never understood. Well, if you follow this podcast before, you already know that I don't understand Republicans. Because for two reasons. One, aside from them being batshit crazy, the other side of it is that anything a Democrat does, they want to block. Let me start with, Exhibit A. This woman here, Senator Dianne Feinstein, is currently experiencing a bout of shingles and therefore is not anywhere near Capitol Hill to actually help with Democrats as they are trying to pass specifically Biden's judicial picks. Because of that, certain Democrats have actually put in measures to actually have Senator Dianne Feinstein replaced, and Republicans blocked it. I cannot make this up. The Democrats are trying to do the reasonable thing because Senator Dianne Feinstein is as you can tell, she's old. Let's just call it what it is. So because of her age and the fact that she's dealing with shingles, for the simple fact of the matter is that Democrats are like, well, we want to have a replacement or have different measures in place so we can move forward. Republicans are blocking it. And I do not understand that. And I always said it best. It's amazing how Republicans are an enigma because they always want to preach about, small government, more states' rights, personal accountability, all the greatest hits, which are usually bullshit, but all the greatest hits. But it is amazing to me that when it's time to do something responsible, because a Democrat said it, well, they choose to go the other route. And trust me, I said it's one of two things, because once we get to it, the Republicans, specifically the House Representatives, led by one 10th-time person, Kevin McCarthy, has came out with their budget plan. And trust me, you want to stick around for at least that for a chuckle. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this as well. Tyre Nichols' family is actually filing a civil lawsuit against Memphis, the city of Memphis, and Memphis police, basically for the murder of Tyre Nichols. For all those who don't remember, just a few months ago, a certain Scorpion group, which was a specialized police unit, decided to basically take out a hit against Tyre Nichols after a stop, which, by the way, they still have yet to identify what that stop was about. And those 5 men did wind up killing said victim. Well, the family is moving forward with nearly half a $1 billion lawsuit. And honestly, you have to do this in situations. Reason being because it gets attention. Now, in no way, shape, or form is the family expecting to get that type of settlement, especially from the city of Memphis, especially in Tennessee, but it is meant to kind of get things in motion because the trial for these men is still ongoing. All of them have pled not guilty. So we're yet to see exactly what happens. But again, let's keep this very clear. 5 men killed 1 man, and yet there is no justification for it. So again, the trial itself is going to be interesting. But speaking of trials, guys, we do have some other news as well. And I've always said this before. Before we get to Ralph Yarl, I have to ask this question because this has been bugging me. because it's amazing how those unseasoned potato salad raisin individuals of the certain bland variety always say it's not about race. Okay, it's not about race. So I want to bring up two similar stories, and again, I want you, the viewers, to tell me, am I wrong or is there a correlation? Because again, these are two stories where individuals went to the wrong house, were not a threat, and yet one was shot and killed, one was shot, then double tapped, and somehow survived. One got charged with murder, the other one charged with assault. Watch these next two stories, and if you're like me, you'll see the difference.
Shock in upstate New York. Police say a man shot and killed a 20-year-old woman who was in a car that accidentally pulled into his driveway. Tonight, he is charged with murder. Miguel Almaguer now with that story.
Lost in rural upstate New York, 20-year-old Kaylin Gillis was shot and killed Saturday night when the SUV she was in accidentally pulled into the wrong driveway. It happened in remote Washington County when the sheriff says Gillis and her friends, who were in two vehicles and a motorcycle, couldn't find a nearby home. As the SUV was turning around, investigators say Kevin Monahan walked out of his home and fired 2 shots at the vehicle.
Why did the suspect tell you he opened fire?
He has not given us any motive. He's not given us a reason as to why he felt necessary to fire. They turned around and were in the process of leaving when the shots were fired.
The sheriff says Gillis, who was in the front passenger seat, and her 3 friends never got out of the car and never posed a threat to Monahan, who's charged with murder. After the shooting, driving through the secluded town of Hebron, the group reached an area with cell phone service and called 911.
They were young kids, like anywhere across this country. They were on a weekend night looking for a friend's house, and it's just a senseless and it's a tragic incident.
Monahan, who's 65, has pled not guilty and is expected in court tomorrow. His attorney tells NBC News the shooting was a series of errors which resulted in a tragedy.
Tonight, a 20-year-old shot and killed after pulling into the wrong driveway.
Okay, so right there, right? 20-year-old, wrong driveway, never got out of the car, wasn't a threat to the homeowner. Homeowner comes out, fires a couple of shots, kills a young woman, charged with murder. Okay? Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Because I will introduce Exhibit B, Ralph Yarl. And again, tell me if you see the same thing I saw.
Also breaking this hour, the homeowner charged with shooting a black teenager in Kansas City has now pleaded not guilty. 84-year-old Andrew Lester faced a judge for the first time just a short time ago. Lester is charged with first-degree assault. That's a felony in Thursday's shooting of 16-year-old Ralph Yarl. The teen was shot while trying to pick up his younger brothers and ringing the doorbell of the wrong home. One of the lawyers representing Yarl's family tweeted out this powerful photo today. It says, "It's a miracle he didn't suffer even more serious injuries." NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa is at the courthouse in Liberty, Missouri. Maggie, I know you've been covering this from the start. This is such a startling story still. You were inside the courthouse for this arraignment. What did you hear and see?
Yeah, Peter, we just walked out of the courthouse. Mr. Raymond just wrapped up a few minutes ago. In fact, Andrew Lester was one of several people in a block of arraignments, and the bailiff came outside before it got started and said, if you are here for the Lester case, we're going to bring you in first because we know the interest is high. We're going to do that one basically as a hearing by itself, which is what happened. Andrew Lester, 84 years old, walking into the courtroom after coming into the courthouse through a private secured entrance, walking in with a cane, walking in slowly, basically sitting first in the jury box before proceedings started. Once they did, he and his defense attorney, who did not state his name for the record, but we're working to find it, walked right up to the judge's bench. Lester speaking softly, so it may have been so the two of them could hear each other. Again, kind of the big headlines from this, he pleaded not guilty in this shooting, faced with multiple felony counts for the Thursday shooting of 16-year-old Ralph Yarl. He also was told by the judge of certain conditions of his bond. Among them, he has to report within 24 hours to a bond supervision company. They'll visit once every month at least. After that, he has to turn over any weapons that he has to police. He cannot have a concealed carry permit. He said he does have one, so he'll turn that over as well. And then finally, and of course we expected this, he can have no contact with Ralph Yarl and his family. His attorney saying they will work with authorities immediately to make sure all of those procedures are followed. And with that, Ralph Yarl and his attorney exited through that same private entrance. We have producers and crews circling the courthouse, so if they even poked their heads outside, we hope to hear of that soon. But it was a quick hearing, Peter, with a lot of updates, as you said.
Maggie, you also spoke to the neighbor who says that he helped Ralph Yarl after he was shot. What did he tell you?
Yeah, we know, Peter, that Ralph Yarl, after he was shot, went running for help. His family said that he begged for help at basically 3 homes. And finally, a neighbor yelled at him to get on the ground and put his hands in the air. Ralph, this wounded kid, they say complied. At that point, that's when James Lynch, a separate neighbor from all that commotion before, says he basically heard the yelling. He came running. He hopped a fence. And he says he got down next to this teenager who he could tell obviously was gravely wounded, stayed with him till paramedics arrived. Here's part of what he told us. Take a listen.
He wasn't alone. He wasn't by himself. Somebody cared. To lay there in the street alone and scared and bleeding, that's awful. He wasn't alone. I was with him as soon as I knew he needed help, I was there. And I was there with him until the right people were there to make sure that he was okay.
One of many people obviously so shaken by this. I do want to end, Peter, again, if we can pull back up that photo of Ralph Yarl and his attorney, his family's attorney, Lee Merritt. That photo is just astonishing, given what he's been through. He's outside, he's smiling, he's home healing. His family, Peter, saying that he is recovering from this shooting one day.
Okay, so I want to point this out. Kaylin Guinness, 20-year-old who was with friends, trying to find a friend's house, went to the wrong house, never got out of the car, turned around, tried to turn around. Blake Walsh, who was the homeowner at the time, came out, wasn't in danger, wasn't a threat, Kaylin Guinness and her friends were not a threat to him. Still fired 2 shots, killing her, right? He get charged with murder, still pleads not guilty. Don't know why he pleads not guilty, because it's kind of an open and shut case. You basically fired at a person who was not a threat to you. You still did it. So again, I get that. Open and shut case. Let's go to Ralph Yarl. Again, a teenager who was just trying to pick up his siblings, went to the wrong house. He knocked. And Andrew Lester shot him through the window, shot him through the door. No warning, no nothing. Not only shot him, he double tapped. He aimed for the head. So you're telling me that Andrew Lester can shoot Ralph Yarl twice, second time being a headshot, and the most that they will get with him is assault, felony degree assault. Keep in mind, if you are aiming for someone's head with a firearm, in most states, that's at least attempted murder. At least. Because you aimed for the head. And again, Ralph Yarl to Andrew Lester was not a threat. Although I love the fact of how they're pulling this up. Oh, well, he's 85 years old. He's got a concealed carry permit. He perceived Ralph Yarl to be a threat. Now, on top of that, again, I showed you what Karen Gillis looks like. At this point, we all know what Ralph Yarl looks like. Someone please explain to me why the charges are different outside of the fact that I wonder if Ralph Yarl was white. Yeah, I'll go ahead and say it. If Ralph Yarl was white, would Andrew Lester not be charged with attempted murder? I even dare to say if Ralph Yarl didn't survive, would Andrew Lester ever be charged with murder, much less attempted murder? Because thank goodness Ralph Yarl survived. At the same time, is recovering, which don't get me wrong, we are all glad about that. Because again, that's one of those situations where a black man doesn't survive, and yet he did. At the same time, Andrew Lester is getting more protection, more leeway, if you will, within the halls of justice, even though he fired on a non-threatening person. Tell me if I'm wrong, because when I look at those two stories, all I can sit there and say is, oh, there's a correlation there. Nobody wants to say it, but I'll say it. That I just don't get. Like, what honestly does it take? Because you can shoot a black man, you can kill a black man, you can drag a black man, you can do all these things to a black man, because the perpetrator never gets murder attached to their crime unless it's so heinous that unless the public has that big of an outcry that something gets done. And again, this goes into the whole thing about gun ownership. It actually does go into that, because two older men with firearms, and I keep saying this all the time, there is a reason why gun reform needs to be done, because you'll have cases of old white men with itchy trigger fingers and zero discipline that will cause exactly that mess. So again, tell me I'm wrong, because I think Andrew Lester should be facing an attempted murder charge, because he did try to end that young man's life. It's not just assault. That's why I think it's kind of bullshit there. But we will follow those cases as they go along. Meanwhile, let's switch to the workforce for a second. In the workforce, it's always the hustler's mentality, because we got to these days, because everything's going up but your pay. Everything's going up but minimum wage. Everything's going up but your pay and minimum wage. It is still the same. And, your bosses, look, we all got a boss. We all have a CEO who somehow made in life, who may have ass-kissed or swindled his way or what have you, for he or she to get to that coveted spot that we would all love to be in one day. And, CEOs try to inspire us. If you've been on those corporate emails, the CEO tries to have a fireside email where it's like, I know, guys, as I'm enjoying this from the Hamptons, I just want you all to know, keep doing your best, because we're a family. That kind of bullshit. That being said, however, let's look at the other side of it. Imagine a CEO who decided that, you know what, I'm still going to get my bonus, but for the rest of y'all, I want you to work harder. And if you complain about it, don't complain, work harder. Why does that sound messed up? Because it actually happened.
This season for a lot of employees. So staffers at the office furniture company Miller Knoll asked their CEO during a video town hall how they could stay motivated if they do not get a bonus. But her pep talk may not have had the intended effect.
Get our orders out our door, treat each other well, be kind, be respectful, focus on the future, because it will be bright. It's not good to be in a situation we're in today, but we're not going to be here forever. It is going to get better. So lead by example, treat people well, talk to them, be kind, and get after it. Don't ask about, what are we going to do if you don't get a bonus? Get the damn $26 million. Spend your time and your effort thinking about the $26 million we need, and not thinking about what you're going to do if we don't get a bonus. All right? Can I get some commitment for that? I would appreciate that. I had an old boss who said to me one time, you can visit Pity City, but you can't live there. So people, leave Pity City. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Now, here's another little bit of context you need. In 2022, that CEO, Andy Owen, took home $5 million in compensation, including stock options and a bonus. I'm back with the panel. That was great.
That was rough, is what that was. You know what that is? I'm going to call it what it is. See, this is the reason why. You want to know why the working environment in society has changed? You want to know why? Because of that. CEOs with that mentality, What I mean by that is that, to give you some context, for that particular CEO, they were doing a town hall, because most CEOs do town halls, trying to stay connected, but it's all PR stuff. But anyway, that particular CEO got a question about bonuses and why we're not getting them. And also, since we're not getting them, how can we go about, trying to maintain morale and positivity and things of that nature? Because let's be honest, we all deserve a bonus. If you work hard and you bust your ass, you should get a bonus. Because again, for all the employers out there and CEOs, you understand, just paying us these days ain't enough. It's not. Because worker morale, corporate loyalty is all corporate buzzwords that have very little meaning to us. Because it's amazing that you ask for us to give you a 2-week notice, but when you're ready to cut us off at the leg, it's immediate. So there's no such thing as corporate loyalty. But at the same time, when companies do take care of their employees, I mean, they, bonuses, PTO, things of that nature. If you're doing everything you can for your employees will do everything they can for you, as long as you're taking care of them. A lot of businesses along the way have forgotten that. So, with a CEO who, as you just heard, took in a bonus of $5 million, is telling her employees, I'm sorry, you're not getting it. But you know what you can do? You can go out there, you can keep a positive attitude, you can go out there and get that money, and you can just make this company great. Because you know what my old boss told me? My old boss told me you can visit Pity City, but you can't live there. If that was not the most terrible motivation speech I have ever heard, and I've heard quite a crap load of them, because that CEO is pretty much telling you, I got mine, get yours. It's almost like CEOs are really out of touch. And again, I get it, because me and a friend of mine said this a long time. We used to say this, if you've had ramen, and there's nothing wrong with ramen, but we all know the top of ramen packets you had growing up and in college, when you was in the struggle. We haven't forgot where we came from when it comes to ramen packets, but we used to have this saying: it is hard to go back to ramen once you've had steak on a consistent basis. When you can go to Ruth Chris or Morton's or a good steakhouse on a daily basis, it is hard to give that up and go back to ramen. But that's only if you're piss poor morally. But most CEOs have actually lost touch, because in this day and age, a bonus could mean the world to an employee. It could be $100, it could be $1,000, it could be $5,000, $10,000, it could be $100,000. The point is, employers want good workers, but employers have to be good employers to those workers. For example, if they are due bonuses, give them bonuses. Let's stop with the whole, and I said again, if you're one of those companies that are giving 50 to 75 cent annual raises, $1.25 raises, and you swear up and down it's the bee's knees, and you wonder why the person during their performance review has such a dejected look on their face, is because they realize that all the work that they did that entire year, putting in hours, maybe sometimes missing family gatherings, things of that nature, working during the holidays if it calls for it, only at the end of the year for someone to look at all their work and go, you know what it's worth? $1.25 increase. And expect you to be fucking happy about it. That is the same type of thinking that a CEO, much like the one I just showed you, is doing just that. Because she is pretty much saying, I'm going to get mine, you get yours, but you're not getting yours the same way I'm getting mine. And yet they wonder why corporate loyalty doesn't exist. That's why I say it all the time. Do what's best for you in the workforce, because the workforce is like the casino. The casino can have as many people inside of it, but it does not care once you have served your purpose. The casino no longer cares. It just welcomes the next person that has what they need for them. So again, I don't feel bad for that CEO, because she's taking a lot of heat, as well as it should be. Because if she only sat there and said the truth, I don't care whether you get bonuses or not, you should be happy you have a job. Because that's what a lot of CEOs be. That's a lot of CEOs' way of thinking. You'll find it very odd that most CEOs do not have the type of thinking where it should be like, oh crap, I should make sure my employees are taken care of. Most CEOs and most senior leadership in companies don't have that thinking. They have that woman's type of thinking. That thank you for your hard work that got us everything we wanted. Unfortunately, it did not work out for you. And yet they wonder why there's so many jobs out there that are open, but people want to work. People do want to work. People just want to be appreciated. But if you have CEOs like the one I just showed you, who wants to work for that bitch? Just saying. Moving right along, guys, I did want to cover the story as well as the Supreme Court is supposed to have a hearing for the case on abortion pills, whether or not they would allow it to be legal or illegal. Well, it got pushed back.
More breaking news this hour. The Supreme Court has just extended the temporary pause that it had put on an appeals court decision. That means for now, access to a widely used abortion pill stays the same. It's on hold. You'll remember there have been clashing court decisions over the last month. NBC News Washington correspondent Yamiche Alcindor is following all of this for us. So, Yamiche, this just happened just moments ago. We had anticipated that they might make a decision, the Supreme Court, by midnight tonight. It sounds like they're sort of kicking the can down the road and saying, we're going to just hold for a while, not deal with this just yet.
That's right, Kate. The Supreme Court was expected to act today on a request by the Biden administration to immediately block a lower court ruling that would have curtailed access to the abortion pill, misoprostol. But we have arrived at this moment, of course, because last Friday, Justice Samuel Alito paused the ruling by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that would have placed limitations on the medication. Now, of course, as you said, the thing that we're learning now is that they extended that deadline. So they were supposed to have that deadline midnight today. Now it's midnight Friday. So they've bought themselves more time. That pause was expected to mean that the court was likely going to act before then, and people thought that the court was going to act before this deadline today, but now it's likely that the court might act before Friday. I want to underscore that the court has a number of options in front of it. It could side with one of the parties, it could fail to act, or it could take some other unknown path that we don't know. Of course, if the court sides with opponents of abortion rights, that would mean that the pill would likely stop being available by mail. Patients would need to obtain the pill in person and before 7 weeks of pregnancy. And the FDA's 2019 decision to approve a generic version of the pill would also likely be expended. So we're definitely going to continue to watch this, but we have a little bit more time now. I should say the Supreme Court has a little bit more time now to make that decision.
Yeah, Yamiche, we just have 30 more seconds, but it sounds like they might need that time in order to figure out, as you say, whether to intervene themselves or just kick it back to a lower court.
That's right, because, of course, we saw that 5-4 ruling when we saw the Supreme Court overturn Roe v. Wade over the summer. And now the Biden administration is hoping that they can sort of allow this approval and the restrictions that were put in place to not be put in place further on. But we'll have to continue to watch this. Of course, the Biden administration is hoping this 6-3 majority conservative court will rule in its favor. But there are a lot of people who are worried it won't go there.
Okay, so I find it amazing that the same Supreme Court, the same conservative heavy Supreme Court, the same Supreme Court just this past summer struck down Roe versus Wade. This is the same Supreme Court that is now going to be deciding whether or not they want to jump into this mess. Because an appeals court by a Texas judge had ruled that the abortion pill by mail was unconstitutional. So because of that, it made its way back to the Supreme Court. And here we are again. And I just find it amazing that the same group of individuals who sat there and thought it was a good idea to strike down Roe versus Wade could possibly either reinforce it or decide to do a 180 and say, you know what, we allow it. And I'll say this, and I'm going to say this, I'm just going to be as honest as I can. This really is an open shut case because despite what those on the pro-birth / pro-life side believe, this is an attack on women. This is an attack on women and their rights. Because trust and believe, if men can get pregnant and have children and you try to put reproductive restraining rights on men, cities would be burned down within the week. But because it's the Handmaid's Tale, and a lot of people took that as gospel, they decided that, along with conservatives in heavily conservative states, decided that, yes, we are going to tell women what they can do with their bodies as long as it pleases us. That doesn't sound creepy at all. That sounds like Christianity to an extreme extent, especially within the GOP. But again, to the Supreme Court, this is a no-brainer. This literally should be. But again, we have a conservative-leaning Supreme Court. They could go along with the judge in Texas who actually voted against, who actually ruled against it. They could just not hear it at all, and they get sent back down to the lower courts. But it is amazing that in order for a woman to have any rights in this country, the levels that they have to go through to fight for this kind of stuff. Because at first, when Roe versus Wade was being turned down, and that abortion, by the way, was only legal by Roe versus Wade. Now it's in so many ways, and depending on the state that you're in, because most states have trigger laws for abortion, could be seen as illegal. It is amazing that, okay, well, if I can't go to an abortion clinic, I can at least get it by mail. No. Then what do you want? First you want to go out to Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics. Okay, cool. I can still get my abortion pill in the mail. No, you shouldn't. Why? Because I really wish that those of the pro-birth side say what we all were thinking the entire time. We want you to basically be broodmares. We want women to be women who got pregnant, whether by consent or without consent, by rape or incest or however you got pregnant. We still want you to bring that child into the world. Do you know how fracking disgusting that sounds? Because that's exactly their mindset. You know, they know how they say that? Well, what about the unborn child? What about the fetus growing inside of you? It deserves a chance. What they're really saying is, shut up and bear the children we want you to bear. That's the reason why the wording for the pro-birth, pro-life group are always exactly that. They'll never say exactly what they really want to say, but they do want to treat women no different than livestock, and that is fracking messed up. But we'll see come Friday what the Supreme Court does. I would be surprised if it goes either way, but if you're a Las Vegas betting house, I guarantee odds are they may go right. But speaking of things that are going right, because, well, the only things that can go right usually are wound up being conservatives. And in the current title holder of the Hold My Beer competition, Florida is leading ahead. Why is Florida leading ahead? Because you guys remember the Don't Say Gay bill that dictator Governor Ron DeSantis wanted to put in place because he was afraid that the LGBTQ plus community was trying to turn kids into their members to fill their ranks in some sort of messed up inception thing. Yeah, and remember how quickly the Don't Say Gay bill got passed, which much to our chagrin in Florida, we're not surprised. Well, unfortunately, Governor Dictator Ron DeSantis doubled down. Now, instead of it being grades K through fourth grade, now it's being expanded to the 12th grade. Yes, I wish I could make this up. They're actually voting to expand the restrictions on this bill to where it'll go to literally high school. So, high school, that you will not be able to talk about women's body functions, sexual orientation or preference. You can't talk about it in the 12th grade if they have it their way. If the Florida Board of Education has it their way, they could literally turn around and sit there and say, you know what? You guys are 17, almost 18 years old. You still cannot talk about it in the classroom. And if you're going to sit there and tell me that right there is the greatest form of brainwashing. Because keep in mind, this is the same state where Governor Dictator Ron DeSantis looked at African-American AP history and said, as a white man, I don't like it. It's too woke. Ain't got it cut down. This is the same man who is currently taking on Walt Disney and currently losing that battle. But he took on the Don't Say Gay bill because in his case, Florida is where woke goes to die, as his state is currently under flooding, which kind of lets me know that maybe there is such a thing as plagues, because if a whole bunch of frogs and pestilence show up in Florida, yeah, somebody's not happy with him. But all jokes aside, the extreme measure of this bill will only harm LGBTQ plus members. It will. And you would think by high school, at a time when you're making decisions about your future, whether you're going to college, whether you're going to trade school, whether you're going into the armed forces, whether you're going into business, you would think at that point, whether you're a junior or senior in high school, you or a freshman, I'll even go freshman or sophomore, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior in high school, you would think for 1 second that you are of age to start making decisions for yourself as you were getting to the point to where you were either going to enter the workforce, college, armed forces, or trade schools. You would think at this point that you have the know-how and should be responsible enough for your own choices. Unfortunately, in the state of Florida, that's not true. And again, goes to show you that there are some things that definitely need to change, especially for the fact of the matter is that we are still for a majority of us, we are still very much homophobic for no reason outside of plain ignorance. Because contrary to popular belief, they're not trying, the LGBTQ plus community is not trying to basically change or turn kids into their members to fulfill their ranks. No, that's what churches are for. Yeah, correct me. Yeah, I could get a lot of hate for that one. But unfortunately, Florida's not the only state that seems to be going after children. Texas, which is now moving to second place in the Hold My Beer tournaments. There's a lot of things in school I expect from teachers, but what I do not expect is a fight club, especially for the first rule of Fight Club. You don't talk about Fight Club, and yet this substitute teacher decided to kind of hold one in a classroom. You can't make this stuff up.
24-year-old substitute teacher Natalie Garcia was arrested Monday, charged with 4 counts of child endangerment after this video came to light. You can see these are 12 and 13-year-olds at Kimbrough Middle School in Mesquite, Texas, whose faces have been blurred because their minors appear to be fighting each other at the encouragement of their substitute teacher. The incident was caught on a cell phone video obtained by NBC Dallas. The mother of the student who filmed this video says she was shocked at what she saw.
I was devastated. I was like, I couldn't watch the full video. I had to stop it multiple times because I didn't think it was real. I said, this must be a prank. This is not real.
According to Martinez, her daughter told her Garcia pushed desks aside to create a space for the students to fight each other, with some leaving the classroom bleeding.
I do not want this on record.
The school district confirmed the teacher encouraged the fighting and told a student to keep watch at the door while fights took place.
Who in their right mind? Because I trust my child to go to school, but I also trust the staff to keep my kids safe. And then this lady, she actually making them fight.
Mesquite Independent School District released a statement calling Garcia's actions appalling and intolerable. They write in part, "As educators, our hearts are heavy, knowing that an individual entrusted with the supervision and care of our students could behave in this manner, and we share the disgust that the families of students in this class must feel." Mesquite ISD has fired Garcia, who had been an employee of the district for just over a month. It's not clear if Garcia has obtained legal counsel. The Dallas County Public Defender's Office has not responded to a request for comment. Now, Beatrice Martinez, whose daughter filmed the video, says her daughter is getting death threats from fellow students for reporting the incident.
Crazy, isn't it? Think about that for a second. You have a teacher who is literally running Fight Club, and that she is allowing students to fight. And the only person that got fired was the said teacher. I'm sorry. What about the principal running the school? What about those that, brought this teacher in? Were they not, did she just walk up the street? Was it not screened properly? Because outside that one student that was randomly recorded says she's getting death threats from students, I'm like, that alone says there's a lot more problems at that school if only that teacher got caught doing Fight Club. Because again, for all those that homeschool your kids, I used to joke about you. I don't joke about you anymore because public education as a whole is just going down the tubes. And I used to say homeschooling was a danger. It was really a non-effective way of getting kids to learn because I think it would miss out on the social aspect of school. I used to say that. Don't say it no more. Because look, kids got worried too much about somebody coming in and shooting, somebody coming in, wanting to hurt them. And now you got to worry about teachers wanting to run fight clubs and forcing kids to fight in schools with a lookout in case they get caught. I don't blame parents for homeschooling. I really and truly do not, especially in that case, because again, if you guys haven't noticed, they haven't mentioned anything else happening at that school. Because I think a lot more personnel should be brought in and held accountable, not just that one teacher. Because it's amazing how the spokesperson sit there and go, well, we all feel what the parents feel. Really? If you felt what the parents felt, how come only one teacher's fired? That's all I'm saying. But speaking of things, guys, like I said before, we are kind of getting near the midway point of 2023, if you can believe it. Getting there, we're still a couple months off. But the reason why I bring up 2023 is because 2024 is the land of the presidential race as that starts up. And if you're a Republican, there are very many places you'll need to be. And unfortunately, the NRA convention is one of them. Two of them have decided to come forward on the NRA. One of them being former failure-in-chief and almost an inmate, Donald Trump. And of course, his former VP, that reminds me of the creepiest Christian ever, Mike Pence, both spoke at this now derelict function for Caucasians, weaponry, and misinformation. I am surprised Fox News wasn't there as well.
As we speak right now, is speaking at the NRA convention in Indianapolis. In many ways, playing to that audience. Listen.
And I promise you this, with me at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, no one will lay a finger on your firearms, just as took place for 4 years when I was your president. I will uphold those glorious words, shall not be infringed.
Pretty warm reception for him in contrast to what we heard ahead of Mike Pence's speech, of course, the former vice president under Mr. Trump, when Pence was booed. Listen.
Well, hello, NRA. I love you too.
So some boos and an I love you, to be clear. Remember, Mr. Pence is set to testify against his former boss in a special counsel investigation looking into Mr. Trump's push to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 election. Keep in mind the timing of this convention here. It's happening just days after mass shootings in Louisville and Nashville. And even with some of the controversy that the group has faced, its convention still seems to be a must attend for people looking to get the White House in 2024. Not just Mr. Trump, Mike Pence, but Asa Hutchinson, Governor Kristi Noem, Governor Chris Sununu, all set to speak. Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott sending video messages. Vaughn Hilliard is there. He is joining us now live, and I'm looking to see if you are in the room. You are, as the former president is speaking, Vaughn. I know that is always a bit of a juggling act, but walk us through some of the dynamics here, because this is the first time that we have seen Donald Trump and Mike Pence in the same place, albeit not at the exact same time, since word came out about not just Mr. Trump's indictment and arraignment, but of course, since Mike Pence and his team said he's not going to fight this subpoena to testify against Donald Trump.
Right. It's all quite a backdrop here. And let's be very clear here about why both men are here is because they're going to be potentially in a 2024 Republican nomination matchup. And the gun rights constituency is a large one. The organizers of this NRA convention suggested that there's anywhere up to 70,000 people here at this convention here over the course of this weekend. And when we're talking about Mike Pence and Donald Trump, I should note that I was just told by one source that the two men did not cross paths. They did not see each other, despite this being the first time that they were at the same event over the course of 2 years. But of course, it's lost on nobody from the press to anybody in this room that the ovation that one received as opposed to the former vice president, Hallie.
Put the convention itself into context, because it's not the first time that the NRA convention has been held in the days after a mass shooting. I think back, in fact, just to last year in Houston, just 3 days after that horrific attack at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. You see other examples there here. And yet the NRA, while it has had its own share of controversy over its leadership, et cetera, over the course of the last few years, still holds enormous influence.
Right. I mean, I remember back in 2018, it was just 2 months after the Parkland shooting, and there were questions about the NRA convention that year. And it was the very weekend that prom was taking place in Parkland. And yet the then President Trump and Vice President Pence, they came. And their message then in 2018 is very similar to the one that they delivered last year after the Uvalde shooting. And the same one that we are hearing the former president deliver here now, focusing on mental health resources, focusing on security resources inside of schools. And I think it's important. The line that so far I'm going to leave with here today, Hallie, from the former president that he just delivered a couple moments before coming on air with you was, quote, "Let's be very clear. The issue is not too many guns. The issue is too many thugs, hoodlums, and savage criminals on our streets." I'll repeat that again. The issue is not too many guns. That is coming from the former president and the individual who wants to be the president again.
Somebody else who wants to be the president for the first time is presumably Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a Republican who has not formally thrown his hat into the race, but who is widely expected to. He didn't attend, but he did send a video message. Tell us about that, especially in light of this. I have to bring it up, Ron, because it's everywhere in political circles, but in light of this new, quote unquote, putting fingers attack. Explain that.
So there's a new television ad that is from the Trump-aligned super PAC that's $1.3 million of money that is going into this TV ad. And it's referencing Ron DeSantis eating pudding with 3 fingers. Now, this comes from a Daily Beast article when an anonymous former staffer claims that he watched the Florida governor eat pudding with his 3 fingers. Now, Trump's allies have picked up on this, and this advertisement plays off of that Ron DeSantis should keep his pudding fingers away from senior entitlements, from Social Security to Medicare. It is a line that we are seeing his allies play to. So far, the former president has not used the line specifically himself, yet he's been going on the attack against Ron DeSantis, who is still considering whether to jump into this race or not.
So, literally and figuratively, first, let's talk about the NRA. Now, I've said this many more times, I'll say it again. This is going to sound stupid, but it needs to be said. I am a firearms owner myself, okay? Try to follow I try to follow the letter of the law. I try to go above and beyond, taking training, taking up certifications, because I still believe in the fact that no matter what, you should always be up to date on everything, okay? So, let me say this to all the homosexuals, gun nuts, and everyone else out there. The NRA and those who they influence or lobby in Congress are lying to you. Nobody is coming for your guns. There is no infringement upon you getting guns, as long as you are doing it within legal bounds. Because that's what the NRA is there for. The NRA is basically, since its inception, has always decided to go the fear-mongering route. Oh, the government's going to come get your guns. The government's going to want to know how many guns you have. The government's going to want to know why you're buying thousands upon thousands of rounds of ammo. The government is going to want to know A, B, and C, because they want to be able to come by and take your guns. The reason why I repeat these things is because those are the same lines that every conservative has said, the NRA has said, homosexuals out there have all said. Because there is this tinfoil hat fear that somewhere along the lines that the government is going to come back and overthrow us or put us under an oppressive regime. You should defend your family. Yes, you should, but not under that BS, because that's what the NRA does. And if you haven't noticed, every time there's been a school shooting, as they showed in the clip, they have an NRA convention like maybe a month after it. Forget the fact for a lack of tactfulness. It's like you don't care. At the same time, the GOP does what they do best. They turn around and they do the greatest hits. It's not about gun reform. It's the fact that too many criminals, thugs, and just the ill reputes have access to firearms. It's not that simple. Because you guys have heard me say it on here, I will gladly, if I was ever given the keys to the kingdom for lawmaking and I came back with gun reform, I guarantee, a certain percentage of quote unquote responsible gun owners will be mad at me. Because I'll put on more restrictions. I'll put on more qualifications. I'll make mandatory requirements. And if they ask why, it's simply put because they don't want to do it. Or outright lazy, one of the two. Because to this day, I still say we need yearly requirements. Why do we need yearly requirements? Because you have a firearm. It's funny that, when it comes to driving a car, what do you need? Insurance and driver's license. You need a driver's license to prove that you can operate this vehicle to the set standards of whatever state you're living in. Why do you need insurance? In the event that you cause an accident or if you're hit in an accident, you are covered. The car is covered. We do this every year. For licenses, okay, licenses every 5 to 6 years. But insurance, in this day and age, you better make sure you have it. Because if the one time you don't have it, you will regret it. Why is that relevant? It's relevant because firearms should be treated the same way. But it's amazing that we're still in this debate. Because keep in mind, it was the NRA that lobbied Congress to kill the CDC study on mental health and its effect on its firearms effect on mental health in the United States. The CDC back in the 80s was ready to do that test, to do that study on research. And the NRA was like, oh crap, it's going to find out that a lot of unstable people have access to firearms. We need to kill that study. Only to flash forward many decades later and see that they basically were Nostradamus and called it right. That a lot of disturbed, not mentally balanced people have access to firearms. That's the reason why everything needs to change. But from the NRA side, they treat it like an attack because patriotism, let's be honest, patriotism and nationalism is like a white man's wet dream. It's like being Rambo, except not signing up for the army for it. Because that's all they do. They play army, they play commando, they get the flak jackets, the camo gear, the bucked up or whatever that deer antler logo, they get all the camouflage, the rifles, they get the beard, making it look like they're a ruffled grizzly man. They play the role because that's the fantasy. The patriot is the wet dream fantasy that a lot of conservatives have. And they think by, being defiant or rogue, it makes them look cool. No, it just makes it look like an ass. But again, we shouldn't be surprised because GOP hopefuls, especially running for presidential races, have to be at these things. So I'm not surprised about your Tim Scotts, about your Mike Pence, about your Donald Trump, about your Ronald DeSantis. I'm not surprised about that because they have to make their appearance. It's like you know what it is? It's like going to the South and having to go to church. You don't want to go to church. But a lot of your voters go to church. And if you're not seen as Christ-like, they won't vote for you. As messed up as it is, that's the fear. That's why a lot of politicians actually go to these spots and do things that 9 times they don't want to do, but the donors are there. Which again goes back to our whole point of this is why things need to change as far as elections go. That lobbying needs to be outlawed. Citizens United needs to be overturned. And that we just need to get the money out of politics. The campaign funding and all of that needs to be gone. Along with the Electoral College. But that's a whole nother discussion. But we'll move right along. In this other news, Dominion was set to go against Fox News in court. And we thought it was going to be pure entertainment for us because the way Fox News has been spinning it, they have made it seem like Dominion's lying. That, because for all those that don't remember, during the last presidential election, it was basically Dominion. It was basically Fox saying that Dominion's voting systems are not working, that they're corrupt, that they're changing votes. And they told those lies for several weeks. And remember that Dominion that took major losses to turn around and say, we're going to sue Fox News for I think a little over $2 billion? Yeah. Well, it was going to go to case. Keep in mind that I said it was because, well, Dominion did something I wish they didn't do.
Or any witness could take the stand, it was over.
Fox and Dominion have reached an historic settlement.
Fox News agreed to pay Dominion Voting Systems a staggering $787.5 million, just under half of the damages claimed in the lawsuit. Dominion's attorneys speaking to a crowd of reporters outside the courthouse.
The truth matters. Lies have consequences.
Dominion's legal team says there will be no on-air apologies or retractions on Fox News.
We're pleased with
the network breaking into their broadcast to cover the landmark agreement.
Fox and Dominion have indeed settled.
In a statement, Fox writes, "We are hopeful that our decision to resolve this dispute with Dominion amicably instead of the acrimony of a divisive trial allows the country to move forward." Dominion accused the network of spreading lies about its voting machines, citing 20 statements alleging massive fraud made in the weeks and months following the election.
The Dominion machine that's as filled with holes as Swiss cheese.
Pressure on Fox was building as documents in the case had already brought revelations about some of the network's biggest stars and their private opinions. For example, the documents show that anchor Tucker Carlson had texted his producer in November of 2020, "The software expletive is absurd." One of his broadcasts from 3 months later was part of the case.
I dare Dominion to sue me because then it would get out faster. So this is... they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to say. They just.
On Tuesday, Fox acknowledged the recent court ruling that certain statements it broadcast about Dominion were false. It did not admit to actual malice, spreading lies knowingly or with reckless disregard for the truth. That is what Dominion was going to have to prove in court. But Fox's legal troubles are not over. Smartmatic, a voting technology company like Dominion, has also filed a similar defamation lawsuit against Fox News, asking for $2.7 billion in damages. Fox has denied the allegations and called the alleged damages outrageous.
Smartmatic's case is based in New York. Fox lost a challenge to get it thrown out on appeal. So far, there's no date set for that trial, Savannah.
All right, Stephanie, thanks. Let's turn to NBC senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett. Laura, good morning. I think the big question is, why did it take so long to settle? Fox News has already suffered the embarrassment of its major hosts being exposed as not even believing the lies that they were telling viewers about the 2020 election and Dominion voting systems. And it already got all this far and is still paying nearly $1 billion. So why settle now?
For a company that's only worth about $80 million. So obviously the payout is enormous. And remember, defamation cases are always risky. You have to show not only did they put false things on the air, that they knew they were false at the time and that they did it anyway. It's a high bar, and a jury trial is always risky. And so you can understand for this company, it was worth to get that payout, right? And not take the risk at trial. And those two things had made the case unusual. The false statements were so absurd to begin with, and you got all this mountain of discovery that is so unusual. Really, it gave Dominion so much more leverage.
It was an odd defamation case in the sense that in a summary judgment ruling, before one bit of the trial started, the court said it is an undisputed fact that these were lies, undisputed fact that these were false statements. But look, it's a settlement, which means no side gets everything they want. A big win for Fox News is that it did not have to do air an on-air apology, which there had been some reports that that's what Dominion wanted.
And that's why perhaps the person that loses the most is the viewing public in this, right? Because no host who actually did engage in any of those falsehoods has to go on air and say, I lied to you on purpose, and I knew that I was lying at the time. And so the viewers walk away with this not knowing any of that. The viewers might not be reading about all of the details of this. They may not even know that there are emails with these hosts saying we knew it was all a lie. And so you wonder about the public accountability. But again, remember, Dominion is a private company. This case was not brought by a state attorney general who's standing up for democracy. This is a private company that now has an enormous amount of money in its pocket.
Absolutely. And there are other lawsuits. There's another, actually a bigger lawsuit from a company called Smartmatic. I think they're asking for $2.6 billion.
$2.7 billion.
Now, I mean, strictly speaking, it's not relevant to this case, what just happened in Dominion, but as a practical matter, do you think that brings Fox to the table for settlement a little earlier?
I would think that they might decide to try to wrap this up before all of that ugly discovery comes out again, because Dominion has essentially written the playbook now on how to get all of that material to come out. And the case isn't as far along. I don't think there's even a trial date set, but certainly you can see sort of the forecast of where this would go.
All right, Laura, thank you very much.
Woo! Okay, so how can I say this ever so nicely? What the frack, Dominion? I mean, okay, I get it to a certain extent. You had Fox News by the balls. You had, I mean, don't get me wrong. Yes, going to trial is risky, but Fox News, a joke of an entertainment network pretending to be a journalistic piece of integrity, that many of its hosts, including the three-headed hydra of Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingrid, and Sean Hannity, along with Fox Friends, the Five, along with Mike Lindell and Rudy Giuliani, all of them went on the Fox network and basically said, your system is corrupted. Not once, not twice, the entire time of President Biden at the time, President-elect Biden, winning the Electoral College, winning the 270 to become president, the whole time leading up to his ceremony, they couldn't stop saying it. And I get it. You have to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that yes, what Fox News did to you did hurt your bottom line. And it did. But you were about to go to trial. Public viewing trial, where Fox News would have to come on and have to explain why they said what they said, considering the fact that you had evidence that the host didn't believe it, several people working at Fox News didn't believe it, and they still kept touting the lie anyway. You had them bent over the coals, and all you had to do was start the fire. And yet, somewhere down the line, I'm guessing somebody on Fox News said, give them a big number so we can make it go away. But if you give a big number, it has to come with these conditions. None of our hosts will do retractions or honor apologies. And that's the part where I'm like, wait a minute. If I'm Dominion, let me get this straight. Nearly $800 million I'll settle for, but in order for me to get this $800 million, that Fox News still comes out of this clean. Granted, Fox News is going to pay the fine. That's all be done with it. But the damage we wanted was accountability. The damage we wanted was that Fox to actually show some integrity among its shows. What we wanted was honestly Fox to go through the court to the justice system and explain themselves. Because in my opinion, the Dominion company would have gotten exactly their $1.2 billion they were asking for. They really would have, in my opinion. If Dominion had went to court, I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt they would have won their case. At the same time, Fox would have to eat crow. Because at this point, we all knew Fox News was lying. But now that they do not have to give an on-air retraction or apology, it's like Fox News is the Tom Brady of the entertainment world. They may pay a pretty penny, but they still come out winning somehow. So I'm only hoping that SmartView, it is my hope that you guys do not turn around and do the same thing Dominion did. Fox News needs to answer for everything that they've said, from the host to the producer, and explain to the American public. But if they did that, that means Fox News has to be held accountable, which for a lot of viewers such as myself is really all that we freaking wanted. You still would have won regardless. But again, Fox News is like fucking Tom Brady. As you can tell, I don't like Tom Brady. But again, I said I was going to go back to GOP for a second. Because again, the GOP, specifically House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, has unveiled a plan for the debt ceiling as the Democrats and the Republicans are about to square off to raise the debt ceiling because, again, if they do not, Congress shuts down. Of course, many services that the government offers will be shut down. But Kevin McCarthy has a plan, and his plan is, well, to give a campaign speech with very little information.
When President Biden and Senate Democrats waste time, House Republicans are taking action. Today, I'm proud to announce that we are introducing the Limit, Save, Grow Act of 2023. This responsible legislation will be led by our budget chairman, Jody Arrington. Would responsibly raise the debt limit into next year and provide more than $4.5 trillion in savings to the American taxpayer. Now, here's how we do it. First, we limit government spending. Our plan would return discretionary spending to pre-inflationary fiscal year 2022 levels, and then limit the growth of spending to 1% per year. Now, these are the same levels we had just 4 months ago. I didn't hear, Mr. Speaker, a single Democrat complain about that level of spending. These spending limits are not draconian, they're responsible. Federal spending exploded in the past 2 years when Democrats controlled all, and that doesn't include the trillions of COVID-era spending. But limited government spending will reduce inflation and restore fiscal discipline in Washington. If Washington wants to spend more, it will have to come together, find savings elsewhere, just like every single household in America. Now, second, we're going to save taxpayers money. Mr. Speaker, the pandemic is over. House Republicans have already passed a bill to officially end the pandemic. And President Biden signed it into law just last week. Our bill would actually claw back billions of dollars of unspent COVID money that has sat for the last 2 years. The American people are tired of politicians who use COVID as an excuse for more extreme inflationary spending. Now, if this money was authorized to fight the pandemic, but was not spent during the pandemic, it should not be spent after the pandemic is over. Our proposals also repeal Biden's army of 87,000 IRS agents. Now, that will save taxpayers $70 billion, and it's going to protect the families and the small businesses from weaponizing the IRS. It will end the green giveaways for companies that distort the market and waste taxpayers' money. Now, Goldman Sachs just did an analysis, and they say the savings from ending these green giveaways are as much as $1.2 trillion. And we would prohibit President Biden's student loan giveaway for the wealthy. That will protect the 87% of adults without student loans for paying the loans of the 13% who do. And finally, we will grow the economy so we are less dependent on China. Our proposal would restore American energy leadership, make it easier to build things in America, make us less dependent on China, and bring jobs back to America. It will also help lift millions of Americans out of poverty. Right now, there are more job openings than people looking for work, in part because the Biden administration has weakened some of the very work requirements that then Senator Joe Biden previously supported. Our plan ensures adults without dependents earn a paycheck and learn new skills. By restoring these common sense measures, we can help more Americans earn a paycheck, learn new skills, reduce childhood poverty, and rebuild the workforce. It will also protect and preserve Medicare and Social Security, because more people will be paying into it. And we will prevent President Biden's executive overreach to spend money outside the normal process, which President Biden has abused to the tune of $1.5 trillion in unilateral executive actions. You know, we should welcome and celebrate the benefits of a strong, growing economy. For with a strong, growing economy, we'll no longer be dependent upon China. We will no longer be the victims to inflation. And we can leave a better future for our kids and our grandchildren.
Okay, I'm just going to come out and say it. Did anyone hear an actual GOP plan out of that entire BS speech? I mean, he literally said, oh, well, we're going to introduce the Limit Save Growth Plan. You know, we're going to limit growth to 1% per year. But we're also going to take down everything the Democrats did. We're also going to criticize everything the Democrats did. We're also going to try to do things, but we're not really going to go into very specific detail about it, but let you know we're going to do it. At the same time, we're going to forget the fact that the mess that was actually caused by us, actually Democrats try to fix, that we criticize them now because they're ahead in power, but we're not going to bring that up because, you know, it was in the past, even though it was just last term. Kevin McCarthy for almost 6 minutes said nothing. And again, that's how the GOP acts. The GOP literally and figuratively, specifically Kevin McCarthy, gave a speech that literally went nowhere. Boring, actually. It sounded more like a presidential campaign speech than an actual budget plan. And the problem is, with him controlling the House, they have House majority. If all Republicans vote for it, it does go to the Senate. The Senate, unfortunately, is still mostly Democrats. So as long as Democrats stand together, the actual bill could die in the Senate. But at the same time, it just goes to show you that the GOP have nothing except criticizing, well, we need to cut down government spending. This is the same GOP that voted for Trump's tax cuts, which actually gave more to the wealthy and to corporate businesses while taking more from middle and lower classes. This is the same GOP that kind of forgot that, yes, there are plenty of jobs out there, but the problem is minimum wage is still $7.29 an hour. And for a lot of these jobs, they are not paying sustainable living wages. And at the same time, most of the programs that were put in to help those get new skills or take some college courses free of charge were done by Democratic social programs, not by Republicans. So again, this entire cut, limit, and growth BS was nothing more than Kevin McCarthy giving us pretty much everything the GOP usually does. Hypocrites on everything. Talking about limiting small government, but using government overreach for whatever purposes they have. At the same time, you notice they did not talk about increasing wages. He really wanted to focus on personal accountability for Americans, and at the same time, took every chance he could to blame the current administration. Yep, sounds like the standard GOP to me. But moving right along, guys, back to Supreme Court. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is now in the hot seat, as he should be, because it shines a light on what I've been saying when it comes to Supreme Court justice. Really, not just the justices of the Supreme Court, but also senators and representatives, basically those in offices in Congress, need to have a further look at, especially for Supreme Court, because we no longer, and this is just me before I get started, Supreme Court justice should not be a lifetime term. I think at some point, we as a people need to vote them out and not wait for them to hit retirement to do so.
Now, with news of growing calls for a Senate investigation into Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, Senate Democrats are considering a potential hearing on Supreme Court ethics after it was revealed earlier this month that Justice Thomas received undeclared gifts and luxury travel from a wealthy Republican donor. NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin joins us now to dig into this. Julie, good morning. So the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Dick Durbin, talked about a potential hearing just yesterday, while also putting pressure on Chief Justice Roberts to investigate Justice Thomas. So what exactly did he say about that? And do we know what a potential hearing could actually look like?
Yeah, well, good morning, Zingley. Look, a hearing pretty much is up in the air now. We don't know what the parameters will look like specifically, but bottom line here is that most, if not all, Senate Democrats believe that these donations by this wealthy donor should have at least been disclosed by Clarence Thomas. But they're also united in the fact that they think this should call for some stricter ethics codes that the Supreme Court would then have to abide by. Right now, they don't really have any formal rules in place. They say they go by the rules that also cover the lower courts. But obviously, Senate Democrats are really concerned with Sheldon Whitehouse, the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, potentially connecting this to a larger dark money scheme. Here's what Senator Dick Durbin had to say, who's the top Democrat on the Judiciary panel. Watch.
What we called on Chief Justice Roberts to do is to accept the responsibility of the court. As Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, he has to understand that Clarence Thomas's conduct is absolutely unacceptable from an ethical basis. To restore the integrity and the reputation of the court, they have to do something. An investigation followed by a change in approach on ethics.
So you hear him calling on Chief Justice Roberts to investigate this himself. It's not clear what the lawmakers on Capitol Hill are going to be able to do, especially in a divided government.
And Julie, it is important to point out that Senate Republicans are pushing back on this idea, especially Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, right?
Oh, totally. Most of them are actually united in the fact that they think this is really no big deal. Senator Cornyn, who's a top Republican on the Judiciary Committee, he said, look, this happens. Even senators accept personal favors sometimes here and there. They do, however, think this could have been disclosed, and that's something that even Cornyn said Clarence Thomas is going to have to do. But on the bottom line, on the flip side, Republicans think that Chief Justice Roberts could have this all handled internally. Take a listen to what McConnell had to say, the minority leader.
The Supreme Court and the court system is a whole separate part of our Constitution. I have total confidence in the Chief Justice of the United States to deal with these court internal issues.
Now, Senator Romney, who is the only Republican I heard say this, said it could potentially be problematic if Clarence Thomas did accept these donations and personal favors, as he called them.
And Julie, it is worth noting, though, everything in D.C. is connected, though we heard McConnell say they are their own institution, right? The Supreme Court. This is all complicated by Senator Dianne Feinstein's medical leave. She's also a member of the Judiciary Committee, but Senate Republicans have blocked a request by Democrats to temporarily replace her. So, Julie, this would actually reduce the likelihood of actually seeing Justice Thomas testify in any potential ethics hearing, right?
Exactly. That's such a good point, because we saw Republicans block this temporarily replacement. Senator Feinstein said this is what they'll be able to do so that she doesn't have to resign early. She can just continue sitting out her medical leave as she recovers from shingles. But this means that the numbers on the Judiciary Committee are even 10-10, Republicans and Democrats lacking that 11th vote that gives them the majority to be able to do things like subpoena Clarence Thomas, for example, to get him to talk to the committee. Not clear if he would abide that subpoena in any case, but really this just shows you how complicated things are when Democrats have such a slim majority over Republicans in the Senate. They're not 50-50 anymore, but even still, they require every single vote to be able to carry out their agenda. And in a case like this, where they're trying to investigate Clarence Thomas and these payments and donations to him, Senator Feinstein's absence is a huge hurdle for Democrats to get over.
Yeah. To a certain extent, yes. Because the simple fact of the matter is, guys, and I say this as nicely as humanly possible, that for the simple fact of the matter, he was taking donations and trips from GOP donors. Now, you are a Supreme Court justice, which means that you are one of the people of the highest court of the land, but there also is a certain ethical issue there. which a lot of people go, but he was accepting gifts and travel and things of that nature. He just didn't report it. Yeah. And as a Supreme Court justice, that's kind of a big problem. Because if he saw no problem with reporting this and saying it does not violate ethical standards, where else would his judgment impact on such cases like, oh, I don't know, making the abortion pill available by mail for women? Roe versus Wade, Loving versus Virginia, Brown versus the Board of Education. Keep in mind, this is the same Supreme Court justice that sat there and said that previous case rulings need to be looked at. And yet we shouldn't be concerned that GOP donors are whining and dining him. And yet he doesn't report it. This is why I sit there and say, this is why Supreme Court justices, this is why senators, representatives, those that work in these political offices with this type of power and influence that they wield should come with heavier restrictions. I truly believe that even though Supreme Court is a lifetime assignment, I don't think it needs to be lifetime anymore. I think, honestly, Supreme Courts need to be switched out every 10 years. I think every Supreme Court justice serves a maximum of 10 years. After 10 years, you have to sit out. You basically have to swap out. You need to move on. Doesn't mean you can't stop being a judge. You can go to lower courts of appeals and things of that nature. But for the highest court in the land, I'm sorry, every 10 years, we need to have new blood. Because that's how it should be. Because you have Supreme Court justices, again, with lifetime appointments, they usually stay up there until they retire or, they buy the farm. We've seen it happen. We've seen it happen to a few Supreme Court judges in the past. But again, when a justice does not see anything wrong with disclosing this, that right there is a slippery slope. And when it comes to Clarence Thomas, man, times I wish we listened to Anita Hill. But we'll follow that story as it develops. But anywho, we're going to go on to our feel-good segment because usually on How the Frack we got here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, sometimes make you lose faith in humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday, it's hump day, which means that next Friday, why is next Friday on my mind? Sorry, guys. So what that basically means that with Wednesday being hump day, that again, tomorrow being Friday Eve, which is Thursday, we want to leave you guys out some good vibrations, things of that nature. And I think we actually have that because, look, it's Wednesday. If you're in the South or just anywhere, we all know the lottery. We all want to play it. We all have dreams and aspirations of being able to sit there and say, man, if I won, I'd quit, I'd do this, I do that. I still do it. Well, in this case of a young mother from Florida, she did just actually that after successfully seeing her daughter beat cancer.
I'm going to put a big smile on your face. A Florida mom speaking out after winning the lottery the day after her daughter finished her cancer treatment. Lara, you have this exclusive. Good morning.
Talk about great timing. Good morning to you, Michael, and to you. We'll talk about a double dose of good news. Imagine a mom's relief that her daughter's cancer treatments are declared over and a success. And then the next day, feeling pretty lucky in life, buying a lottery scratch-off ticket and winning $2 million.
Oh my gosh, I just didn't know. I was like, are you sure? Would you check this on your phone? And I won.
It was the surprise of a lifetime when 74-year-old Geraldine Gimblett realized she won big, $2 million big, on a Florida lottery scratch-off ticket. There she is, all smiles, holding her check.
I've been scratching for a long time. Every single day I bring these scratch-offs in my pockets.
That win coming just one day after Geraldine's daughter, Laurencina, who's been fighting breast cancer, finished her radiation treatment.
We're just like, I'm not believing this. It was truly amazing. It was a blessing.
It was a welcome and relieving surprise for Geraldine, who'd taken money out of her life savings to help her daughter win her cancer battle.
I don't know if every mother would do that. I think it's a mother's love. I really didn't think about it. I just did what I had to do.
Now the mother-daughter duo are looking forward to a brighter future.
I'm just so extremely happy to be where I am. I do have another surgery that I have to go through. I'm waiting for her to go through this surgery to see exactly what she's going to need. Her doing what she did just meant so much to me. I don't even see where I can replace her. replace it. I mean, I just have to keep loving them. Maybe that'll help.
If that ticket is not a sign that better days are coming, Geraldine doesn't know what is. And get this, guys, that winning ticket was the very last scratch off left in the store. In fact, the store clerk first told Geraldine, sorry, we're all out. She said, come on, do you mind just looking again? Lo and behold, he found one more ticket, the big one, $2 million, a huge help for her daughter. But beating that cancer, that is priceless.
What a great.
Yep, it definitely is. Again, you gotta love stories like that. Because number one, her daughter beating cancer, always numero uno in my opinion, because definitely F cancer. But you can't tell a greater happy ending to a story like that to win a scratch off and have life-changing money. Because trust me, for all those like the CEO we talked about just too long ago, having just 2 million, 3 million, 5 million. I mean, having that type of life-changing money is a beautiful thing, and I will never complain if I won. But if I won, because if I won, this becomes my full-time job. Outside of being a parent, this becomes my full-time job. I'm just saying. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. Thank you all for liking, for watching, for letting me know this is live. I know it's a little bit late, but I still thank you guys for rocking with me anyway. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here, guys. I do want to shout out to my buddy Vaughn at BigVZA. You can definitely check him out, BigVZA on all social media, especially his YouTube channel, where he does have plenty of free music. He does not ban you or do copyright strikes. If you like the beat so much and want to buy it, he'll sell them to you. Just reach out to him, BigVZA on all social media. Of course, for me, guys, you can find me, BlackFox447, on most media sites. I do reviews of everything that I watch, that I read, that I play, even gym stuff because I do a couple push-ups. Of course, the link at the bottom made it a little bit bigger for you guys to follow. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, we'll take you to the link tree that I have for my YouTube, Facebook groups. For all of my podcasts, How the Frack Got Here, Get Bit, and of course the Off-Limits podcast. Definitely like them all. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think of what stories we covered. I do want to keep this conversation going. As always, guys, I am rooting for everybody, but especially my melanin people and my seasoned people. You know who you are. At the same time, guys, we need to be more about the celebration of others' accomplishments and things of that nature, and less being salty. It takes more energy. It takes less energy to say congratulations than to take all of it to be salty. So again, more appreciation and unity going into 2023, as I am basically rooting for all of you. That being said, guys, as we wrap this up, the one thing about How the Frack Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information to provide you with, so you can come up with your own logical. That was kind of terrible. That was a terrible outro. So we try to give you all the information, make up your own mind, but we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We are basically, we do a lot better society as we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first black woman Supreme Court, electing our first black woman Federal Board of Governors, electing our first black National Cybersecurity Director. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up at your paycheck? Why are there different politicians, but still same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other. We'll all get through this. Peace.